Hey, this is Evan Barnes, and I'm going to be doing a brief overview of The Communication Theory of Cultural Studies by Stuart Hall. This is based on E.M. Griffin's book, A First Look at Communication Theory, 8th edition, and I'll be using the 27th chapter, Cultural Studies. This theory comes from the fact that Hall believed that the media represents ideologies of the dominant class in society. So basically, those who control the media exploit the poor and powerless because the poor and powerless have no say. These ideologies he talks about, he defines them as the mental frameworks, such as language, the concepts, imagery of thought, etc., which different classes and social groups use and recognize in order to make sense of the way society works. The book tells us that most of us are unaware of our own ideologies and the tremendous impact they have on our own lives. A lot of this theory lines up with Marxism, which is at root an economics and power theory, but it basically states he who has the gold rules. In a capitalistic society, people who own the means of production gain more wealth by extracting labor from workers, who get no extra benefit from the wealth created by their own work. So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Hall is definitely influenced by this, but he isn't as hardcore as Marx. Hall believes that the function of the mass media is to convince readers and viewers that they share the same interests as those who hold the reins of power. So what Hall is basically trying to do is place a spotlight directly on the ways media represents a culture, because then the world tries to be like the culture and keep the average person more or less powerless to do anything but operate within a corporealized, commodified world. At least within the United States, the vast majority of information we receive is produced and distributed by corporations. Here's an example from the book. So you're in your living room and you turn on the TV to CNN, and on your coffee table is a copy of Sports Illustrated. So then your home is virtually an advertisement for a media business. Time Warner owns Sports Illustrated and CNN, and most likely the cable company that brings signal to your house. So if you switch channels to, say, like HBO, and you watch a movie produced by the largest Hollywood studio, you'll get a double dose of meanings produced and sponsored by Time Warner. So some might ask, oh, what's the big deal? Well, Hall would answer that corporate control of such influential information prevents other stories from being told. So the ultimate issue for cultural studies is not what information is presented, but whose information it is. I think this is really important, so I'll say it again. The ultimate issue for cultural studies is not what information is being presented, but whose information it is. Hall believes that the mass media provide the guiding myths that shape our perception of the world and serve as important instruments of social control. Faith in humanity can be restored, though. The fact that the media present a preferred interpretation of human events is no reason to assume that the audience will correctly take in the offered ideology. So they're not necessarily going to accept everything they hear or see. Hall holds out the possibility that the powerless may be strong-minded by resisting the dominant ideology and translating the message in a way that's more coherent to their own interests. He outlines 3 decoding options. The first one is operating inside the dominant code. So kind of self-explanatory. The media produces the message, the masses consume it, and then the audience reading agrees with the preferred reading. So what they watch on TV, they agree with. And they only watch what they agree with. Number 2, applying a negotiable code. So the audience agrees with the leading ideology in general, but opposes its application in this specific case. So you're watching TV, and you usually agree with whatever you're watching, but for some reason, whatever they're showing right now, you disagree with. Number 3, substituting an oppositional code. The audience sees through the establishment bias in the media presentation and mounts an organized effort to demythologize the news. So they're watching this news channel and they see through the bias, and then they do something to tell people about the bias the news channel is creating. Hall did have some trouble believing that the powerless can change the system, yet he was determined to do everything he could to expose and alter the media's structuring of reality. Contrary to how it sounds, he didn't regard the masses as cultural dupes who are easily manipulated by those who control the media, but had genuine respect for the ability of people to resist the dominant code. The most often heard criticism of Hall's work is that he doesn't offer any specific remedies for the problem he identifies. And Hall's most positive contribution to mass communication study is his constant reminder that the futile talk about meaning without considering power at the same time. So it's futile to talk about meaning without considering power at the same time. So the theory is basically about how the media are controlled by corporations, and the information presented to public is necessarily influenced and framed with profit in mind, and how we can avoid that. So, thank you, and hope this has been informational and too long. Sorry.